Hello everyone and welcome to session 9A and 9B of the Business School Leaders Forum brought to you by GoToWebinar by LogMeIn. Today I'm joined by two speakers who are going to be presenting two presentations. The first presentation will be brought to you by Norbert Chismadia, who is President of the Board at Pallas Athena Innovation of Geopolitical Foundation, who will be presenting on geopolitics and the impact on business education. After Norbert's presentation, we'll pass over to Wilfred Meinhardt, who is Policy Director of Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University, who will be presenting on Liberating Impact by Rewarding Academic Intuition and Sense-Making. So in a moment, I'm going to pass over to Norbert, but just before I want to know there'll be a Q&A session at the end. So if you do have any questions throughout this presentation or Wilfred's, please drop them into the question and hopefully we have enough time to answer them all. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Norbert.
Thank you, Paul. Can you hear me or can you see my presentation?
Yes, it's all perfect, Norbert.
All right, okay. So hello, everybody. My name is Norbert Chismadia. I'm geographer, economic geographer. I'm the former state secretary in the Ministry for National Economy and the former executive director of the Central Bank of Hungary. Now, as the Paul said, I'm the president of board of trust of Pallas Athena Geopolitical Foundation. I'm the author of the book is Geofusion, the power of geography and the mapping of the 21st century. So for the next 20 minutes, I want to explain is why is geography is important and across to the geoeconomy and the geopolitics and the complexity and all across to the connectivity. So the first slide, when I want to starting is the proverb that says is that geography is a destiny. Because geography is not just memorizing the place in the map, but with geography we can understand all the complexity and the connectivity of the new world system. If you want to understand the world, we need the maps because the maps are important. I think it's everybody know that the political world map, almost 200 countries, the 3 main oceans, 5 continents, and 4 or 5 different colors to deliver to the different countries. But you know, for the map, for us, is like geography is so important and so interesting because if you see of the different perspective, the world map, we can see for other viewpoints. So let's try some example. If you see our world political map about the 80, there is not Europe in the middle of the map. We can see of the different the map, or the same is like the using the world political map by the Chinese perspective. If you want to travel from New York or Washington to the Beijing or Shanghai, you can going across to the North Pole. So this is the shortest way. So we can see this Chinese perspective world map is a total different view. Or if you want to focus of the other map, this is more than 182 different airlines connection. We can find of the very special the fusion or very special the network maps. Of course, about we are living of the age of fusion and age of networks. So more than 2 billion people is using of. You can see about the Facebook world maps around the world, or if you are dealing with the scientific collaboration, what is so interesting, so international relation between the different university and different director, different professors, we can find this very special the fusion maps. And of course, if we want to describe our world, we can told we are living of the age of the global city. So this map is showing 384 different cities relation connection. So we are thinking of the global cities, and the cities or super region will be of the new superpower house of the 21st century. Of course, this is the symbol of the new Renaissance age. Today, of the world economies, 174 global companies generate more than 40% global GDP. 700 companies produce of the 80% of the GDP. And this company, the connected in the cities where especially the creative workforce is available. So beside the strategic companies, nation states is a new superpower house of the 21st century, will definitely by the cities and even to the global cities. And the age of the global cities, the rise of the urban networks and the cities, we can recognize in 64 different global cities, the super region, or how I call them is like the fusion of places. So about the fusion of polis and even the growth axis, the belt revolving of the center of the city from Boston to New York to San Francisco and Los Angeles, Paris and London, Singapore, Shanghai, Beijing, Tokyo, and South Korea, we can find for a new competitiveness, the new competitiveness of the city by the economic prover, the connectivity ranking, the infrastructure rankings, the financial system rankings, the how is the hub networks is important. So for this new competitiveness, we can realizing of even the East Asian cities like Singapore, Seoul, Shanghai will be on the list beside of London, New York, Paris, and Tokyo. So this is that I call it is like the fusion of polis. And for us, the new maps is even that is the three main passwords in the 21st century are the complexity, sustainability, and connectivity. So today our world maps we using about the connective maps, where it's the more than 1 million kilometer internet cable, 2 million kilometer pipeline, 4 million kilometer tram line, and 64 million kilometer highways we can take in station for this, the connection. So how we call this is a connectivity, the global economy, geography, and the superpower house, the global cities, the real right of the new maps, of the new geoeconomic complexity maps. What I call it is a fusion, the geofusion map. So we can see in here is the map of the 21st century with the cities and the linkage and connection all around the world, what is getting in more and more important. And of course, if we are dealing of the maps, we can realizing the map is starting, is a dynamic, starting of the moving. So this map we can see about the countries between 2010 and 2012, or the headlines of the BBC, the name of the countries. So all the world maps is start of the pulsing or start for the moving. Multipolar new world maps. About the describe for a population and the GDP, we can describe we are living of the multipolar world order. And the main question of this age, who will be the winner nation, leaders, community in the 21st century? The Paul Tucker, the deputy governor of the Bank of England, told those nations where is the monetary policy, economic policy, and the geopolitics can work together. So if you want to describe all the countries' geopolitical DNA or the geoeconomic DNA, we can focus on the four different pillars. The first is the geographical and physics pillars. The second one is a human pillars. The third one is a structural pillar, or how I call this like economic pillar. And the fourth about the technology and innovation, connectivity, and infrastructure factor, what is so important. So we can, every country describes how it will be for is the future. And even is very important that we are dealing with the three main passwords are the connectivity, sustainability, and complexity. This is the most important factors measuring economic complexity, giving country the export and export products integrates to the global product sale. And there is a two factors matters. One is the knowledge and highly qualified workforce, while the other is exporting the product itself, the shared industries with the high added values in export structures to the given countries. So complex economic competition. There is two countries, three regions. The first about China and the Southeast Asian countries, South Korea, Singapore, and Japan. The European countries and the Scandinavian countries like Finland and Sweden. And of course, the third, what is very new for us, is the Central and Eastern European countries, including to the Germany, Hungary, Austria, Czech Republic, and Poland in the top 10 countries, and United States in this new economic complexity rankings, there is a 12 in a ranking the city. And of course, if you are seeking for a new innovation, new patent, new technological map of the world of the 21st century, we can describe of these three main regions, even about the Southeast Asian, European continents, and even of the emerging region of the Central and Eastern European part. And of course, we are dealing of the GDP per capita 2000 and 2010 of the top 20th century of the countries, we can see for the rise of Eurasia. And if you see of the nomination of the GDP countries, we can realize that China's GDP is larger than the United States. So we can realize this is a new world order, what is starting of 7 years ago, but even to the coronavirus is realizing is what will happen to the future. I think is a very interesting and good for us challenge to the future. So there is a percentage share of the global GDP PPP growth in the last 2 years. We can see about the China and other Asia give to the growths more than 60%, what is very important. And the others in the last 10 years, the economic gravity, the push mover to the east, and how is it important about the rise of the Asia and can be the #1 economic superpower. So if you want to describe it geopolitically or geoeconomically or world multipolar system, we can realize is the two main regions. So the G2 words is the United States and the Eurasian region, what is including the China, Asia, and hope it will the future in Europe together, and there is a connection will be the very, very important. So we just start to write about the rise of Eurasia. Eurasia of the largest continents in our world is more than 70% of the global population live of the Eurasian the region. And the China long-term economic strategy program, the Belt and Road Initiative, or the New Silk Road, where it started and established in 2013, and the long-term strategy to find a way to placing of the world economy from the oceans back to the mainland. In the World Economic Forum, is 3 months ago, is writing about a very interesting researching, and they forwarded for the 3K region to the 21st century is an Indian Ocean. In the North Arctic Sea, and between the two oceans, it will be the Eurasian continents. So geopolitically, we can say that after the 500 Atlantic period, in the new world order, it's new Eurasian supercontinent starting, and by this the connection getting stronger to the 21st century. So in the Belt and Road initiatives, what is the meaning by the initiatives, the 2 wins, the land and the sea rules, the 3 principles, and the 4 keywords, the macro level connectivity, energy, capacity for the cooperation, joint development of the markets, operational level, the business management, market operation, the government service, and international standard. This is the 5 direction to the 5 main goals are connectivity, the politics, infrastructure, trade, finance, and the connectivity for the people-to-people connection, and even what is very important, going after the 6th economic corridor, the connection between Europe and Asia. So for the New Silk Road, the Belt and Road Initiative, this is a complex networks and it connects to the players, the constitute of the new age of the globalization that makes about 40% GDP and 70% of the Earth's population. And what is very important, 7 years ago, whereas the Belt and Road Initiative is starting, it was joined by the 64 countries and by the last years, more than 125 countries and 29 international institutions have seen and started to implement of the more than 170 agreements worth than $100 billion. So the main hubs, the new infrastructure networks created within the frameworks of the New Silk Road and significant of the certain regions, the change for the new centers arranged. We can see in this map between Asia and Europe, the connectivity and the tram lines and economic corridors. So it's every year more than 3,673 trains going the run between the Chinese and the European cities, and the Greek part of the Piraeus can shorten the duration of sea transport by 20 days. And the transportation, the Xi'an and Duisburg in Germany, the rail route takes of the 24 days instead of the previous 42 days. So that the new axis It started for the creating, we can see here by the economic corridors and the Belt and Road Initiative. And the Chinese word, what is the main is a tongue, what is the main voice, the way. So it's important how we can go for the future. So the connectivity and the Chinese way of the tongue. So connectivity, geography, and the way of the tongue, the Chinese word is tongue, can create of the new word, what called is a connectography, but including of the emerging region. So I just want to focus of the Central and Eastern region. We can see on the Piraeus the port, Rotterdam and Hamburg port, Central and Eastern European countries, what's joined the 17+1 cooperation with China, so CE countries, including Hungary, Visegrad countries, and the Balkanic countries. So it's very interesting because this region is getting of the part of the 3 Seas initiatives, but is including the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and Adriatic or the Mediterranean Sea. The other part, in the western part, there is a new Amber Road, a new train from Italy going across to the Austria, Hungary, North Poland, to the Baltic place, until to the Lithuania, and the east is a new Silk Road, new economic corridor is joined across to the Istanbul or Belgrade, Budapest train line, or the Moscow, Warsaw, and we can describe in the future in the Central and Eastern European region, it will be the U2 capital. The first in the north is Warsaw in Poland, or this will be of the logistic centers, energy centers, infrastructure centers, and the south part of the Budapest is like intellectual centers about tourist, financial centers, service, and the technology in the Central and Eastern European region. So I think it is important because I wanted to describe of the places. You know, is the Central and Eastern Europe, it was always the part of the east part of the European Union, but with the new Eurasians getting for the new gateway, it will be of the geostrategic places very, very important. And finally, if we want to describe our words, so we can realize about the geofusion words, where the connectivity is so important. We can see about technology and the complexity, the global system, the nations getting the more stronger. And there is a new multipolar world order in Asia, India, Europe, United States, Brasilia, or Australia is getting of the more hub. So something is happened in January, what is absolutely the change of the world, and some geopolitical thinkers saying, oh yes, of the new world order just starting. So the COVID, the virus, if you see about the map of the spreading between the January and May, we can describe of the same maps. So it was shocking for me. We can read from getting our first step in Wuhan or Beijing, where the Beijing is going across to the world, but you know why? Because of the travel patterns. So the travel patterns is showing us of geofusion map of the main hubs to the 21st century maps. In Europe is going across to America, and America is a divide of the eastern part and the western part. The western part is much closer to the Asia, and the Asia part is much more closer to the European continent. So, and after we are realizing of the Chinese words is a crisis is mean the way G. The way it means danger, and G it means opportunity. So this is the choice of us what we are choosing. So finally, I want to summarize of the geofusion word in global economic era of the 21st century. So I want to summarize of the 21 theses of the 21st century in the geopolitics or in geoeconomics. So the first, we are living of the new world order. This is the new actors, new partnership, new battlefight, and the new myths are start boarding. The second one, the new world is multipolar. The first is of geography is a sense of the order to the understand of new changing world order. We must return to the geography. Where you live, where you work, this is a geography is a matter. The fourth, we are living in the age of geoeconomy. And the five is of spreading the turning point of the technology. So the globalization getting of the new phase, the age of the technology. The 6, that we are living of age of fusion and age of networks. The World Economic Pole has clearly shifted to the east. The 8, there is an important connectivity, complexity, and sustainability. 9 is that data is a raw material in the 21st century. The 21st century is really the land of the age of Eurasia, whereas the most important area, the winners can be the gateway region of the new Eurasian continent, Asian countries, Central Asian, Eastern and Central European countries, the meaning that former peripheries will become the new centers to the future. The new aliens, the former, are long and interesting and the values. And 13, we are living of the new age of Renaissance. 14, there is global cities, a 64 fusionopolis or the mega region, the super region, is a highly important role the Polish did in the Renaissance. So we are living of the new age of the global city-states of the new Renaissance age. The 15 of the new way of thinking, the set of values are beginning of nature, family, safety, harmony, sustainability will become more and more important, and just the national identity, the local culture, the opposite for the globalized. And our world progressing from the global civilization toward of the new sustainably new is called geocivilization. The 17 is the world seeks inner harmony and balance. So as ancient yin and yang principle that produces their effect together is important. The balance equality implies of the balance of employment, growth, and finance, and equilibrium of the geopolitics, money, and technology can work together. So the 19 is ancient of the new. The age of the technology, donation, and centers will be the successful. We're able to transfer the ancient of the 21st century, and the nation which can recreate, extending the knowledge will be the very important. So in the 20 points, we must redraw our maps in order to understand the special changes and the trend of the 21st century. And the last one is the future will be the long-term sustainability, Eurasian, the greatest challenge or the high solution of the global climate change, sustainability, sustainable economic growth, as well as connectivity and complexity. So in the order to find the right solution, we must have for redrawing of the maps, new approach with a new fusion is a long-term vision because of the new economic, the new functional geography, and the new sustainability technology, the models are needed. And the future has begun. And how is the sailor said, navigare necesse est. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Norbert. That was fantastic. So I'm going to pass over to Wilfred, who is going to present. So we'll just transfer over to Wilfred.
Is this okay, so?
Perfect, Wilfred. So you can go into your presentation.
Thank you so much, Paul, for giving over the word to me. And thank you, Norbert, for a fascinating global journey in the last 25 minutes. I was fascinated by all your graphics and your story. Thank you for that. It inspired me a lot. I will do something pretty different. I will look at the impact agenda of business schools. And I will make sure I will combine two things in this presentation. I will go to impact and see how we can frame impact, combine it with a career model for faculty, and then see how we can integrate the two. Because I think faculty is the key thing in business school where the impact agenda should land. And then I will make an argument for liberating impact from research, because I think it's much too much connected to research, by creating a concept of impact leadership that is much more forward thinking than a compliance logic that's currently in the impact agenda. So these are my 4 topics, and I will start with impact framing. And impact framing depends very much on how we see the relationship between science and society. And I work in a business school for over 25 years in the university, and I've seen many different models of this relationship over the years. And I also have seen many academic leaders owning different models. And the interesting thing is that you have to know, for a dean or a rector or a vice chancellor, you have to know which values are in his or her mind when he talks about the relationship of science and society. And I can tell you there's a lot of diversity there. Some can think of enlightenment, other ones can think of instrumental knowledge. There's a long debate in number 5 on rigor and relevance in business schools. In sciences, there's fundamental versus applied. There's context of discoveries. There's exploration, exploitation. So probably many of you know these different models. My main point is that this is a free choice that you can embed into your strategic narrative based on the patterns in your school and say the value composition in your school. You can select a specific framing of these relationships. And I think universities and business schools more and more are aware of their own, say, autonomy in formulating this relationship and working their strategic plans from that. So this is an important one to see that there's impact diversity, in fact, if you look at this relationship. That is one step in the reasoning. Then we come to the second step. In business schools and universities, we have created what I call a linear model of the careers of our faculty. People are going into tenure tracks, doctoral tracks, and professor tracks. Everything is predefined with promotion and tenure criteria, publication criteria, and so on. And this is quite a linear process. And this has been there for many years. But if you think, how would we combine this with impact? Now, impact is so important that impact becomes part of the mission of the institution. Then you can see that impact can be aligned in the different stages of the academic career. And the 3 concepts I have added to the career cycle are impact literacy, impact praxis, and impact leadership. And in the slides following, I will show that if you approach this in a differentiated way, different values come up for different career stages. And especially my main argument will be in the what I call the eminency track, where impact leadership in the very senior career of our faculty is an unexplored goldmine probably for schools and institutions to create future value creation from. So combining the tracks of impact and the career tracks gives new opportunity for developing new faculty careers, more resilient faculty careers, and also more fair indicators for people in different career stages as they mature in their career. So this is why I combine them, and I will go in the next 3 slides. I will go in the impact literacy, impact praxis, and impact leadership to underpin the argument of this presentation. So I will move now to the impact literacy part. And for this work, for this slide, I'm really happy with the work of Julie Bailey, who is a very, say, well-known impact researcher in the UK, and who has, as the first, created an impact literacy model for both the individual and the organization. I'm mostly interested here in the individual level, but you can read on the organizational part in the DOI and a link to the article that I have given in this presentation. In fact, we're talking here, if I go to my career model, we're talking to the junior and early career stages. People can be say in their professionalism can be say engaged or challenged to move from a basic to an intermediary to a more senior level and a critical level, where they more or less have better proficiency and better say expertise on what they're doing in their career. And I think it's essential that people become aware that this is an extra professional dimension that can build into the professional profile next to the research expertises and their educational and teaching and learning expertise that they have developed in their academic career. I think if also organizations like schools and universities take this seriously, they create comparable support facilities as they have built for education and for research to make sure that their faculty can prosper into their, say, their impact identity, especially already starting in the early career. So this is how you be aware, get engaged, and get critical in your doctoral and your tenure track. But if you move on to the next stages of the career of scientists, and you focus on the early and the mid-career stages, so the overlapping part between people coming out of their tenure track, become associate tenured faculty, and even move from that into what I call the professor track to become full professor. That is currently the main focus of impact assessments, both in the UK, in the Netherlands, in Europe. We look back on the performance of this. We look back on the performance of people in the mid-career, and the fact what we have to do is like a balancing act of responsible metrics. And most of the time, still, it is focused on classical bibliometrics, impact factors, and those kind of indicators and metrics that are very much under discussion at the moment. But also there, institutions can choose more and more to balance, say, the things they want to measure in the careers of their mid-career faculty. Responsible research moves now from, say, researcher level measurements to group level. Classical metrics like bibliometrics move towards altmetrics and more visualizations and narratives. The research assessments move from very much an output-driven approach to a more oeuvre-driven approach. And other say developments make sure that we move from journal or book level to contribution level, so that you move exactly, that you don't weigh the evidence and the value of contribution based on the journal where it's published, but based on the merits of the work itself. And all these developments and balances are happening at this very moment in the research assessment world. And my message here is that for the early and mid-career stages, institutions can have specific strategies that are responsible towards their specific faculty composition, and that there's metrics enough to make the narrative in a very balanced way without copycatting, say, classical hard metrics that are used for the hard sciences. But still, it is very much looking backward in what we have done, how much we have achieved. We count the metrics instead of say looking forward. It's still backward-looking impact. And this brings me to my third career stage. If we move the perspective towards people who have moved from associate professor to full professor, and people, and it's often a forgotten category in our human resource management, is the people who have been a professor for 5 or 10 years. What I call the eminency track. That's the track between becoming a full professor and becoming a senior full professor. That category of our colleagues is so immensely valuable for our institutions that my plea is we should honor these people much more on what I call forward impact instead of backward impact. And in fact, the impact policies of universities, when we switch from mid-career to senior career, should focus on different things. And I've listed a few that I think should be part of the forward-looking thinking. And that is the concept of academic intuition. I worked in my life for 25 years in a research institution. I worked very close to all the professors in my institute. And I noticed that people who become more proficient in their career, more experts, also develop an academic intuition on opportunities that are there for impact. Maybe for different people, for people who are in the early career, they can create meaningful interpretations of what I call weak signals of the future. And this is why I put this wheel of weak signals in here as a visual. That's a report that has been published by the European Joint Research Center recently, where they look at the weak signals that come on from 2050 to back now. And you see how diverse the signals for the science and technology are in the next 25 years. And if your faculty is able to see, to feel, to make meaningful interpretations of these kind of weak signals, I think that is a huge impactful exercise. But you can't measure it because it didn't happen yet, but you can make a narrative out of it and give the people who are willing to operate in these insecure white spots on the map to give them honor and to give them security so that they can, say, perform this academic intuition and give it a play field. And that's, for example, the third point is responsible investment choices. Senior faculty who make the right strategic choices to, for example, hire other faculty or engage in the right grants or the right networks. Those are investment choices that are impactful for the future research enormously. And I think people who make the right choices should be honored for these choices. Long before that the results are there, you know what people among each other know what the right choices are. They feel it as professionals. And then I think sense making is also very important. If you, like Rotterdam, we have a school with about 50 full professors. If we create a community of scholars where collective sense making and the synthesis over becomes more important than the analytics for the articles, then together we are a team that can sense very much what will come in the field and what will be impactful for us as a school or for others in the field. And I think this collective sense making should be part of the senior, say, community of scholars in schools. And then comes in an innovation orientation. What you see often is that the impact policies of schools is focused towards the mainstream publishing and the impact of the publishing, which is often not an idea generation stage, but it is more or less a mainstreaming stage of the research. But I think if we focus and honor idea generation in the very early phases of research, and people who are able to formulate that well and convince their fellow peers and maybe also engagement stakeholders with that. That is a very special feature of senior faculty that we can use. And then I think in this stage of the career, we should more think of personal development, further personal development instead of performance assessment. Again, moving from backwards to forward. What can I still contribute in my career? And the personal, say, career strategy that people have in that very senior career can be very valuable for the institution too, if the right choices are made. And you see more and more senior faculty who take the lead in caring and sharing and not play the ego game of receiving and where the personal individual is central, but you see more and more senior faculty who share and care and think in teams and how they can help others. And I think we should honor that also as impact activities. And with those examples of forward impact, I think I give opportunities to schools to create a new kind of impact narrative, especially honoring the value of senior faculty that they have, where they have often been investing in for many years. But what was lacking of serious, instruments to describe the value of these people in the organization. And I hope that with this contribution, I can liberate the discussion on impact a bit more from backward to forward. And in that sense, enrich the portfolio of impact assessments for institutions. This brings me to my conclusion for this session. What is liberating impact? Is you are aware of the impact definitions and the diversity in the definitions. If impact is well integrated in career development, you have differentiation in the assessment approaches for different people in different stages of their career, meaning that you can develop literacy policies, praxis policies, and leadership policies, and move from promise to performance to intuition, which is more or less, first you are in the people, then you are backward in the performance, and then you look into their mindset and into their leadership. Meaning, impact leadership assessments need a balanced and a diverse approach to really leverage the value of the research as much as possible. And I think this is in a nutshell my contribution for today, and I'm giving back the microphone to Paul to see if there are any discussions possible from this statement with the audience.
Thank you, Wilfred. That was brilliant. So we have had some questions come in. So what I'll do is I'll ask Wilfred the first question. So Wilfred, how can business schools achieve the most positive impact from their research activities?
That's a very generic question. Thank you for that. So my answer would be to approach it in a differentiated way. Business schools have lots of different types of faculty in their community of scholars. And being sensitive to the career stage and maturity of the faculty, where impact is related to the research and education maturity too, and have an expectation that's not one size for all, but more or less an approach where faculty over their career can focus on different, say, core elements of these three entities and have sufficient time to develop those entities to become a more eminent full portfolio scholar in the end. So differentiation is my answer.
Thank you, that was excellent. So I'm going to ask Norbert a question. So Norbert, can you explain a little bit more about the phrase techno-led geography and how this can be included into business schools?
All right, so first of all, how I wrote about is the technology is getting and more important. So for example, this year, I'm very glad that is a global MBA conference is organized in Budapest. Unfortunately, we can't meet in here in Budapest, so I just want to say hello from here, from Budapest, and we're getting for now in online version. So I think that everything in the line in the life, so about the technology is getting and more important. The 21st century, the knowledge, the education, and the technological skill is a very important. Complexity and connectivity in the geography, the global economy, about geopolitics, about technological issues and more important. So what I call this like technologeography, I just played with the words. So it's like technology and innovation, knowledge and geographies. This is how I describe of the face of the geopolitics, or the new geopolitics, what is including to the technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, 5G. So we can see between United States and China, what's happened, the focus of the main technology. Who will be the world superpower #1 innovation country, United States or the China? By the business school, what does it mean? I think in the business school, what is very important, the focusing of the daily good practice knowledge. So I think we're about the technological new answers, and the knowledge is meeting inside of the business school. I think is getting for a more flexible, and we realize of the last 3 months for the winners very fast, very innovative, and get find for the new way of the solution.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go back to Wilfred. We've got another question for you. What innovations in the research sector are the most interesting currently?
I think that if I speak for my own school as an example, what you see is that in the last, say, 10 years, business schools have also reached the limits of what is possible in the production model, where more and more research is published and as an output focus. So what you see, I think in innovation is what I call the responsible turn in academia, meaning that we have rediscovered the value-based approach and that we more think from the relevance of our research than for the journal where it is published. And that good research goes hand in hand with more relevant content and contributions. And I think that's a trend that has started. Last year we had the Responsible Research Conference in Rotterdam, the first global summit, where 65 deans discussed that, and you can find the results on the RRBM network website. Next week we have the second global summit there, and the transition that will happen, and it starts hopefully in the mature business schools at a larger scale now, is that we find out what the new faculty model will be, what the responsible research means in the context of different, say, regional settings of business schools, and how that reflects in a more responsible career model where impact and relevance is built into the more resilient careers. I think that's the main innovation that I see at this point in institutional development of business schools.
Fantastic. So I'm going to pass over to Norbert again. I've got another question for you. Do you think that coronavirus has changed geopolitics, and has the virus perhaps shown that borders are not as important as once thought?
Yes, of course. I think it's not just only the geopolitics will change, but all the life. So we can think about, for example, the travel. We can think about the education. We can think about the realize about the healthcare system, how is important of the personal safety, how is important about the communication. And of course, in the technologies, in the geopolitics, it's real changing. So, for example, 3 weeks ago or so, is some geopolitical thinkers, Kissinger or Richard House, we are starting of the new world order. So there is the macro bunny is from Singapore National University told this is the rise of the Eurasia and the China, how it will be getting of the superpower for the next decade. So I think it's yes, of course. Geopolitics is real changing. The global economy, the global supply chain is real changing. So the next decade or the next years or next months, I think the people is getting the trust is more for the government. So the national governments getting it more and stronger and stronger. And the second things and about in what is the starting, you know, I think it's just started before, but getting it more and more stronger. The localism is getting this more stronger, and I really hope that the people is secure and is getting go back. But I think is what's happened in the year. It's the life is never will be the same like in the before. So this is a really the new world order where we're living.
Amazing. So I've got another question. So I'm going to put it forward to Norbert. How would you interpret geopolitics from Wilfred sense making and initiative lenses?
Sorry, to take the question again.
How would you interpret geopolitics from Wilfred's sense making and into initiatives lenses? So I can't read the question that well.
The Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes.
Oh yes. So I think it's a very interesting. The Belt and Road Initiative started more than 70 years ago. So it's the United States started to build for the new the blue dot with India. But you know, it's a very important that is from the ocean get to the mainland. So it's getting for a connectivity in between of the part of the east and going for Europe is make for a connection, not just only the infrastructure development, not just only the logistical center, not just only the port or not just only for like an energy system, but when we realize in the COVID in March is that China is getting started for the new Belt and Road, and this is the Belt Road for the healthcare system, and to help China to the other countries to the collaboration. The Belt and Road initiative is going across to the knowledge for university, the link between university and even across the culture. So I think it will be of the very the new collaboration and a stronger collaboration. And this is the occasion that I called in after to the global civilization is getting for the new geo-civilization. So it's a geo-civilization for me, it means is the same values, the same future, and in one geographical area. And this new geographical area, the first is like Eurasia, and after this will be the more bigger and bigger the territory.
Perfect. So I'm going to move over to Wilfred. We've got another question come in. How can business schools better collaborate with one another on research?
That's a very good one. I think that if you look at publishing, for example, if you look at the top publishing going on, all the incentives for research at this moment going on, you see often papers with 2, 3, max 4 co-authors maybe. And I think that if the collaborations between experts already start at a very early, say, idea generation stage, and they think more in tribes than in individual competitions, that probably the quality of the papers and the scope of the papers and the type of, say, societal challenges that can be, say, embedded in papers will be much richer if we think of publishing more as teams. And I think collaboration between experts in business schools, seeing the business school research more as an ecosystem than as a competitive individual institution system, would probably benefit a lot. Probably schools will benefit a lot from a new way of thinking from ecosystems instead of competitive landscaping. I think that would really help also for substantial grants. For example, in Europe Horizon, probably the projects will become bigger and bigger, and the ecosystems or the tribes that will be able to acquire the larger grants, more substantial grants, will be team science-driven groups that more and more operate as groups than as individuals. And I hope that business schools will organize in this way and also incentivize collaborative behavior and co-creation in this way. This is my answer.
Thank you. So I'm going to keep it with you, Wilfred. I've got another question come in. Do you think that COVID will affect the funding for non-medical research, and how can researchers gain funding in tough times?
In my perception, for example, I see that the social sciences are of vital importance for the technological sciences too. It's in fact two sides of the same coin. And so but the investments in technological science is of course a magnitude bigger than social science research, but still the importance is comparable, to me at least, in my perception. I think business schools can open up more sources than the traditional granting sources by thinking more stakeholder driven. Probably if you tap into the senior alumni relations of your school more effectively, then probably co-production or co-investment relationship with senior business people who are alumni from the schools would be much more, say, create more value creation than just thinking of grants and funding from, say, public sources. I think when we move into the engagement and say stakeholder-driven approach, more different value sources will come up than the classical ones that we have now. But we have to be creatively there and think in new ways of connections. Yes?
Excellent. So I'll pass over to Norbert. I've got a question for you. What emerging markets are you most excited about?
Yeah, not just only the exciting markets. So it's very important. I think for in this decade we can speak about these emerging markets and it's like the core centers. But I think when I told this my presentation, I want to focus on the gateway region. So I think of the place, the location, it will be the more and more important to the futures. So it's not just only the emerging regions. So for example, the Southeast Asia, but even by the geographical location, the Asian countries, the Asian countries is getting is very important. Or for example, of the Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan countries, and what coming of across the New Silk Road, across the Belt and Road Initiative of the Eurasian Economic Corridor is getting it more and more important. For example, Horgosh getting of the largest the land port in the world, or for example, the Central and Eastern European countries is getting of the new geopolitical, geoeconomic center, so not at the periphery anymore, because there is a link, there is the gateway between the two important parts, Europe and Asia. So I think what I told of my presentation to the future, the geographic location, the geographies will be the very, very important. And about the gateway regions will be the more important situation of the future, the map of geopolitics.
Excellent. So I think we've got time for 2 more questions. So the first one I'll put forward to you, Norbert. Do you think COVID has changed the power dynamics of world leaders? Will we see a shift in leading most powerful countries?
No, I think is no, because yeah, it's we'll see for the results, but I think it's the national government is giving the good and strong answers. So I think it's just only of the role player is will changing, but not for leaders.
Excellent. And I'm going to leave the last question for Wilfred. So Wilfred, in terms of impact, how can business schools strike the balance between research, industry relations, and teaching? Are faculty collaborating enough in this area, or should they be doing more?
Yeah, no, I really like this last question. You know why? Because it thinks from the audiences back to the school. So I see 3 main audiences, and they're already also formulated in this question. You have your peers as for your academic production. You have the learners and the other teaching colleagues as second audience. And the third audience is practice. And if these 3 audiences are served, say, responsibly, then it should be reflected also in the governance structure of the school. In my school, we are working on creating, next to the Dean of Research and Education, creating a position for a Dean of Engagement and Partnerships. And by choosing as a school to make engagement and partnerships a responsibility at the governance level, means that you take the 3 audiences equally serious. And there comes a challenge of leadership, of course, with that. But I think that will be the new balance in the governance of business schools, that these 3 audiences are reflected in the governance and also in the portfolio of the activities of the schools. And how it is different from each school is depending on the mission of the school and the regional embeddedness and the institutional context of the school. And it is not one size fits all, but it's very much a contextualized story, but the main audiences are the same, I think.
Okay, thank you. So unfortunately, we've run out of time. So firstly, I'd like to thank you both for taking part and presenting some great presentations there. For the audience, I've dropped in the chat bar a link for the next session, which is taking place in approximately 30 minutes time, so 3 o'clock BST. That is with Scott Miller and Fabian Mayhard, which is who are from Keystone Academic Solutions, and they'll be presenting on strategies to adapt your student recruitment in a post-COVID world. So if you'd like to join that session, please use that link or head over to our website where you can join the session by registering. The recording of this session will be posted shortly, so please keep an eye on the page, and hopefully in the next few hours the recording will be there. But before we go, I'd just like to thank Norbert and Wilfred again for a great session, and we look forward to seeing you all on a session in the near future.
Thank you very much, Paul, and see you, Norbert.
Thank you, Liffert. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Thank you for everybody. Thanks.
Bye-bye.